It is time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. And now your host, Mike Hewitt, who once again is raring to go.
Coffee silo in hand.
Yes, that helps.
Ready. Listen, folks, we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorski in the studio, and it looks like we're streaming on Facebook. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Streaming on Facebook. Brian Thomas is keeping us out of the ditches. On the line with us this morning, we've got former Congressman Pete Hoekstra from the 2nd District. Congressman Hoekstra, welcome back to the Mike Hewitt Show.
Hey, Mike, it's always good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Listen, I saw an article recently, I think it was Politico, and your name was mentioned a dozen times in it. And but I saw some commonality that you and I have, and I wanted to get it out on into West Michigan for folks to consider. Coming through the primary, as you know, it was probably the most contested primary I've ever witnessed, but very, very contested. You were supporting your friend and longtime colleague Kasich. I was a Cruz supporter. Trump won, and you and I both have found our way to support Donald Trump. And I know that there are a lot of folks in West Michigan, especially reading that Political article, that talked about the Trump campaign and their view of Michigan, and then specifically the concern over West Michigan. So I looked at a fellow like you and me, we're in the same party clearly, but coming at it from a couple different angles. And I thought, how did Pete get from where he was at with Kasich to Donald Trump? So it seemed like a really great question to get you on the line and ask you.
Yeah, well, Mike, it's not very hard. I mean, when I take a look at Ted Cruz, I take a look at John Kasich, and I take a look at Donald Trump, I find that the three of us have a whole lot more in common than what any one of those three people have with Hillary Clinton. And so, even though
amen to that.
even though Ted Cruz and John Kasich haven't really gotten on the Donald Trump bandwagon, that's their decision. I think it's a pathetic decision, honestly, and I'm very, very disappointed by it because them sitting on the sidelines kind of means that they're opening the pathway for Hillary Clinton to go into the White House.
There's a lot of dialogue in the mainstream media about the oath that they all took and all that, and I'm not so hung up on that as I am your point that you just made. I just want to echo it. Any step to that helps clear the path for her is just, to me, that's about as selfish as folks can be. That's how I see it. It just is.
And so what's the case for Donald Trump? Number one, Donald Trump is going to be a pro-life Republican in the White House. Okay, chalk one up. I'm there. I'm assuming you're there. Ted Cruz was there. John Kasich was there. I want a pro-life president. Second, Donald Trump has endorsed the House Republican tax plan. So for those House members who are lukewarm or whatever they are towards Trump, it's kind of like, oh, all right, you guys don't like your own tax plan?
Right.
You've got a presidential candidate that's endorsed your tax plan, and you don't think that's good enough for you to get on board? If you're ashamed of your tax plan, tell us what your tax plan would be. And tell us why you won't actively campaign for a candidate who supports your tax plan.
Tell me, Congressman, have you met with Don Trump?
Yes, I met. I was invited to Mr. Trump's office last week, Wednesday. He had a roundtable of national security advisors,
right,
including Rudy Giuliani, Mike Flynn, Peter King, Mike Mukasey, Mike McCall, and myself, and a few others, and had an opportunity to spend about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half with Mr. Trump talking about national security issues.
Well, the reason I asked that is I think a lot of the concern from grassroots that I work with is his tendency towards being bombastic. Now, that's the word that the media has re-implanted on our lexicon. And so I ask, was your interpretation of him in that meeting?
No, I mean, Donald Trump acted every way that I would have expected a CEO at Herman Miller, where I used to work, or any place else in the private sector or leader in the business world to behave, or the political world.
Right.
Rudy Giuliani led the meeting. He had a very specific agenda for us to get through in the limited time that we had. Donald Trump sat next to him as we covered the various issues. We were all allowed to contribute and participate. Donald Trump asked questions for clarification. He synthesized information, put proposals out there, and asked for feedback on those. He had a sense of humor. He was a nice guy. But I don't want to get off of this, why Donald Trump? Pro-life, pro-Republican economic policies, the Supreme Court. Can you imagine what the Supreme Court and our court system will look like after Hillary Clinton has 4 more years? But again, if you're a Republican and you want the kind of Supreme Court that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama have put in place, just say so. But don't be out there and say, I'm lukewarm on Donald Trump. I'm not quite there yet. Just say, hey, I want Hillary Supreme Court justices, because that's what you are enabling. And then on national security, I'm working on an op-ed piece right now that talks about the decision that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama made in the Middle East. They moved away from stability and containing ISIS to making a decision that they were going to be for regime change. They implemented that in Egypt. They implemented that in Libya. They implemented that in Tunisia. They implemented that in Yemen, and they implemented that in Syria. Dramatic change in American foreign policy and catastrophic results. Well, if you're a Republican and that's the foreign policy that you want, hey, you've got your candidate. It is Hillary Clinton. Just come out and say so. There are 2 choices in this election. It is Hillary Clinton or it is Barack Obama. And if you are not pro-life, if you don't like the economic policies that your own party has put forward, if you want more of the same in the judicial system and you want more of the same in foreign policy, sit on the sidelines, say you're lukewarm or whatever about Donald Trump. Don't lead and open the way for Hillary Clinton to become the next president of the United States, and you will fulfill the vision that you have. And then take a look at what. So that's those are the areas where Donald Trump is clearly on the side of Republicans. And the other issue is immigration. Hillary has said, I am going to go further than Barack Obama on, through executive action for immigration. Well, what does that mean? He's already allowed them to stay. He's slowed deportations. He's really not enforcing border security. It means that Hillary Clinton is going to go and pardon the 11, 12, 15, however many million people are in this country illegally, the step that people have been clamoring for. Barack Obama has toyed with it, but Hillary Clinton, I think, is clearly going to go there. She is going to pardon these people that have come here illegally, opening them up for a pathway to citizenship for one clear reason: to put 11, 12, 13 million new voters on the rolls by 2024. If you're a Republican, if you are a conservative, and you think that we should pardon the folks that came into this country illegally, put them on a pathway to citizenship, and put them on the voting rolls, hey, you've got your candidate. It is Hillary Clinton. It is not Donald Trump. And so, continue your policy or your framework of sitting on the sidelines. And I think, Mike, you're at the same place. When I saw the choices that we had in November, it's kind of like, I am all in for Donald Trump. Yep. I don't want 4 more years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton in the White House. We have seen their policies. We know where they're going. They're going to be more extreme, and then so on most of these areas, Donald Trump is much closer to orthodox Republican philosophy, conservative philosophy, than what people think. He maybe doesn't articulate it very well sometimes, but he isn't politically correct. He says what he believes, and I think what a lot of American people believe.
The fun part about that, though, Pete, is that for years we've heard conservatives say about politicians, I just wish they'd just say it.
Yeah.
Well, now that you got a guy that just says it, they're going, oh, my goodness, did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
It's almost comical.
Yeah, and then let's talk about those issues where he's not orthodox Republican.
Right.
Okay, where he says, I think we better negotiate and take a look at some of these trade agreements and rethink them.
Right.
Hey, I voted for NAFTA.
Right.
It's now, what? It's almost, it's almost 24 years since we voted on NAFTA, that it has been in place. You know what? Yes, I am fine with going back and taking a look at it. Matter of fact, we should go back and take a look at it.
Right.
It's been in place for over 20 years. What has worked, what has not, and what's bad about saying we're going to take a look at it? Clearly, it has benefited Mexico more than it has benefited the United States.
To me, it would be insanity to not go back and look at all of our significant policies on from time to time and say, where are we at? What needs to be tweaked, built on, or taken away? I mean, when I hear people, when they talk about that, I'm stunned, because it makes common sense to me to review these things.
Sure, and when my world at Herman Miller, if I told my boss, "Hey, I'm going to introduce a new product," that's where I spent most of my time. We're going to introduce it. It's going to come out in January, and in 25 years, we'll take a look at it again to see whether it's worked or not. He or she would look at me and say, "You're fired."
Right.
If you launch it on January 1, on January 2, I want to start getting feedback. Is it working? Is it not? Is it too expensive? What's working and what's not? How are our dealers responding to it? How are our customers responding to it? If 3 months later it's not meeting expectations, I want a plan from you in terms of how we're going to get it to meet expectations. You're not going to get away with saying, we'll take a look at it in 20 years.
Sure, absolutely.
It just makes common sense.
Listen, I have to tell you, I've obviously I chair the 2nd District, Republican committee, as you know, and because of that, I have an occasion to be around some of the elected officials. And one of the things that's really concerned me greatly, Congressman, is that a lot of these elected officials, they'll say, vote for the ticket, vote for the whole ticket, but they are afraid to say Donald Trump's name. And listen, I find that absolutely alarming, distasteful. I resent it, to be candid with you. And so I really got to applaud your effort for stepping up and saying these are the right things and here's are the reasons. That is a rarity, and I appreciate you very much for doing that.
Well, like I said, I'm going to be an advisor to Trump on national security issues. I think I'm going to have they're putting together the state team to lead the Trump effort. I'll play some role with the Trump team here in Michigan to try to see if we can't put Michigan in the win column. There's a lot of people in Michigan that typically have not voted Republican. It is the union workers.
Right.
And while I don't think that we're going to make huge inroads into the African-American community, I'll tell you, it is exciting to have a presidential candidate who's not afraid, a Republican presidential candidate who's not afraid to go to the African-American community for those who are living in our inner cities.
Amen.
And for where 58% of their young people are unemployed. And too many of them are getting a lousy a lousy education, and he's willing to go in and say, I want your vote, versus what we did with Mitt Romney, where he said, hey, 47% of the American people are never even going to consider voting for me or for a Republican. If we believe we've got solutions that are going to be good for everyone in America, regardless of whether we think we have a shot at getting their vote or not, I'm glad that we've got a Republican candidate that is finally saying we've got a solution for those people who are down and out in America and who are looking for a party that will create an environment that will bring back our inner cities, that will provide opportunity for our minority people, folks. And all I'm asking for is a chance, because you know what? The solutions that the Democrats nationally and locally have provided to you have created and resulted in the environment that you are living in today. Give us a chance. It's exciting.
It was fascinating watching the mainstream media do their double sow cow, triple toe loop dealing with his approach to the black community, because for 60 years they've been telling us that the black community is in trouble and needs more money. And when he says, listen, for all of these years they've done nothing for you, and then they're going, well, there's no problem in the black community. What's he talking about?
Right.
it was
Detroit
so
really,
well, it was
really
laughable.
Is booming.
Yeah,
Detroit's a great place.
I'm going, where did they get that imagination rainbow from?
I can tell you everything, Pete, that you've said is why they call me the Trump cruiser here, because I voted for Cruz in the primary, but I was still behind Trump because he will check on things like a manager will. He will put the right place to people like you. I saw on Facebook you were involved. I went to Mike. I said, Mike, did you see this? Pete's helping Trump. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's great, isn't it? And
yeah, listen, I got to tell you, and we actually are overtime now, but the final point I want to make, Pete, is real specific about your background with your knowledge of the world stage right now. When we look at Donald Trump and say, does Donald Trump have the capacity to make good judgments? I get to use you as an example of a good judgment that Donald J. Trump is making. So, sir, I appreciate you very much.
Well, thanks. Hey, great talking to you guys.
We're gonna, as this thing unfolds, you guarantee I'll be reaching back out to you.
Well, no, absolutely, and I'm excited. And this is what primaries are for.
Yep.
It's for us to fight tough, and the Cruz people, the Rand Paul people, the Kasich people. We fought a tough primary.
Yep.
All right, but at the end result, we all recognize that we've got a lot more in common than what separates us. Let's come together. Let's elect our candidate, and let's make America. Let's make America great again. That's why we all are involved.
Amen. Thank you very much, Congressman Hoekstra.
Hey, thanks. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, folks. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mike Hewitt Show on
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com because you deserve it. And the Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by renegaderiver.com.
I think he always says that .com. Anyhow, folks, if you're just tuning in, we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky riding shotgun. And on the line with us is Bill Runco, who is a candidate for the State Board of Education. Is that right?
That's correct, Mike. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, and welcome to the Mike Hewitt Show. I appreciate you calling in, Bill.
Thank you.
Listen, this segment was really going to be about straight ticket voting versus all the rest of that drama that's floating around in the court system, but part of it seems to make sense to dial on in a handful of topics, and one of them is convention politics, because I don't think a lot of folks realize how it is that both of our two primary or major parties in the United States, at least in Michigan, nominate candidates such as for the State Board of Education, Attorney General, the Lieutenant Governor, etc. And so having you call in, folks, if you're listening, if you're not aware, there's a state convention this weekend, and in that convention, we've got our hands full as a state Republican Party with a handful of nominations. In the race that Bill is in, I think there are 6 candidates. You're one of them, but I'm looking at your bio, and holy mackerel, have you've got a strong background, Mr. Runco.
Well, I've been involved in a few things, Mike. That's for sure. But first of all, let me just say this: thank you for all that you do to wake folks up. That's what's going on in our country and in our state. People need to be more aware, and if people are aware, an informed citizenry is the best antidote to government out of control. So let me just say that, and you do a great job, Mike. But as to the convention politics and the convention, yeah, you're right. In Michigan, we have primaries to nominate state reps, state senators, and the governor. But when it comes to the Attorney General, Secretary of State, and the state education candidates, the convention is the process that we use to nominate folks. And then once they're nominated at the convention, they appear on the ballot in the general election. So that's the process that's taking place on Saturday. There's a number of really good people running for the State Board of Education. I'd like to think I'm one of them. And, there's 6 of us. And let me just say this. Any of the 6 of us would be a vast improvement over the liberal Democrats who are trying to socially engineer our schools and our society in Michigan and, surpass California as the social engineering capital of North America. It is just really unbelievable what the liberal Democrats on the State Board of Education are presently doing.
It is. It's fascinating. I'm reading, while you were talking, I'm reading the little bit of your background. First off, I know you because I chair the 2nd District Republican Committee, and you chair the 12th. But along with that, you've also, your folks in your community have elected you to county commissioner, state representative, and you've been a district court judge. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. In fact, I had the privilege of serving in public office for 20 years. I did everything in reverse, Mike, and I was 23 when I got elected.
Nice.
And I ended my electoral career at about 45, and so I've been spending a lot of time working to build a career and a professional career for the last 15, 18 years, and and a family, grandfather, three grandchildren, 3 children. One still at the University of Michigan. You talk about liberal social engineering. He's at the University of Michigan. He's at the Ross School of Business. So, it's been a very interesting life for me, and it's been a real privilege to serve in those different offices, and a real eye opener too, and just to see how government can be out of control, and it's not an easy fight to try to keep things on track. Let me tell you, it's never easy.
Listen, part of this is my own personal political philosophy, if you will. When I look at government, and to your term, out of control. Man, if Miles was here right now, he'd be banging on me. But I listen, I blame it on the electorate for folks not getting involved. We look at primary politics, and it's less than, if I look at the eligible voter turnout, it's less than 10%. So 9 out of every 10 people you pass don't care enough. And then you get to the general, and they say, why didn't you vote? Well, I didn't like the choices. Well, did you get involved in the primary? No. Well, then stop. Don't say nothing more to me then, because you've surrendered your right to the folks that got involved. And I say it that way because when we do in fact, I see, I'm not sure if I'm going to say his name right. Is it Lucido? State Representative Lucido from the 36th?
Yeah, Lucido, that's right.
And I see he's advancing the notion that we do not do these type of convention politics for Attorney General, Secretary of State, et cetera. He wants to do a popular vote the way we do state representatives. And I know that's not necessarily on the path that you and I want to talk about this morning, but just on our way there, because you've been a state representative, what's your view on that?
Well, I mean, I think that's what that would do is cost the taxpayers a bit more money because of the primary process. But in addition, it would I think take away the right of the people in the party to really get a chance to examine the candidates. What I'm going through right now in the state board race is a very retail politics, if you will,
right.
type election. I'm reaching out and talking to people individually. There's a couple thousand voters that will be at the convention, so I have an opportunity to talk to a whole bunch of them and individually. And frankly, people get to know you a little bit better. They get to understand what they're doing in terms of making a decision. And these are precinct delegates. These are elected officials that then become state convention delegates. They're representing their communities. They are there effectively as a voice for the citizenry, and I think it's a good process to go through the convention process for nominating Secretary of State, Attorney General in these board seats, because otherwise, what you're going to have happen is you're going to really inject special interest politics money more into the process. You can run for a board seat for a lot cheaper at a convention than you could if you had to run in a statewide primary. I mean, I'd have to go out and raise $500,000 to
minimum.
do this endeavor.
Minimum. We've talked about exactly that on the show before. When you look at, in fact, both Ludwig and I have run for State House, and if you look at an individual mailing, and of course, any consultant worth their salt will say the person that knocks on the most doors and sends the most direct mail is reasonably the most likely to win. And each mailing costs $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 anymore, and that's just it's in a state house district, which is relatively small. So to run for a primary for an attorney general or a secretary of state statewide, to me, it's kind of irony, because the idea from some folks, and I don't want to put words in Representative Lucy, I can't say his name, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. But my interpretation of it is that the goal of it is to make us a democracy, a French-style democracy, rather than a representative government, which is what I'm passionately striving to keep us as. But what it would also do is, aside from that ongoing forever debate, it surrenders more of our political process to lobbying, because that money has to come from somewhere. And it goes to your point. If you're raising $500,000, it means you're out trying to get endorsements in Lansing or in D.C. or whatever seat you're running from. I can't make that add up. But listen, before we're out of time, let's get on the topic of you. What makes you? Why did you decide to run for this office?
Well, as I said, it's been a while since I've been involved in elected politics, and just retreating, so to speak, from that role in my life, and then getting back into more of a professional role. I started thinking about things, and especially things became very obvious to me relative to the State Board of Education. Not only with the fact that the State Board, and let me just say this: when I say the State Board, I'm not talking about Eileen Weiser or Dr. Ziley. There are the Republican representatives. They're doing a good job up there. They're trying very hard, but they're outnumbered significantly. And so this group has supported this notion of Common Core, which I call the federalization of our local school curriculum, local and state school curriculum. They've supported this whole blurring and this attempt to blur the lines, the gender lines between our children, and really create a very dangerous situation where you're going to allow kids in high school to decide, K-12 to decide what gender they'd like to be at any given time, and what bathrooms they'd like to access or locker rooms. And frankly, this whole concept is very dangerous because it's putting our children at risk. I don't think we should have a situation where a young man or woman can self-declare what gender they are and then conceivably using locker rooms and bathrooms of the opposite sex. I mean, this whole thing is just it's almost to the point of ridiculous, and
A year ago, I think it was, there was a young man and a young lady in public schools dating, and he decided he was born into the wrong body and should have been a female, and conveniently, she decided she was born into the wrong body and should have been a male, and so they gave them their own special bathroom. And sometimes it just defies gravity. It gets to the point where you're going, really? And we're debating this in our halls of government as if it's like. It's beyond the scope of reason.
And see, I think the other thing that really motivated me, Mike, is the fact my son graduated from Detroit Public Schools. We live in Dearborn. He went to a Catholic private school, but he decided he wanted to go to high school with the kids he played baseball with, the cultural experience, and just really, it was very unique. So he went down to DPS. We use schools of choice. And I had a chance over the last couple of years of his high school career to see how the parents feel down there. And these are good people,
sure.
People who want their kids to be educated.
Yep, amen.
And we've got the state board messing around with, what gender do you want to be, who do you think you are, and you got these at-risk districts that are failing. We're never going to break the cycle of poverty if we don't educate out of poverty.
Let's not focus on the exorbitant cost of education or the Mickey Mouse twisted curriculum. Let's get off into areas that have absolutely no meaning whatsoever to the goal of education. Listen, I've got to let you go, Bill. But
no problem.
But are you going to go from caucus to caucus to introduce yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to try to reach out and touch as many people as I can and explain who I am, what I think, and how my views, and then the folks will decide if I'm the right guy. So hopefully I am. And as I said, look at any of the six of us will be a vast improvement over the two Democrat incumbents we're going to be running.
Amen. Bill Runco, thank you very, very much for calling us.
Thank you so much, Mike. Have a good day.
All right, folks. Now, listen, Ludwig, you and I, we've got to get on this topic of the straight ballot issue. How much time do we have left in the segment?
I'll probably go 5 minutes.
Well, that's enough to tear this thing right up. Listen, when I read the appellate court findings, or at least their current findings, because this is in a state of flux, I can't make myself know what it is to be a black person. I'm a white guy, and I get the fact that I don't understand. So let me preface my comments by that acknowledgement. But if I were, and I read the ruling that says that an entire race of people they're too stupid to vote one party, one person at a time on a ballot, I find that grossly to be a gross racist statement. I think it's over the top racist to say that an entire swath of the American public, because of skin color, need to have a ballot that all they got to do is pluck one. I think it's diabolical. It's such a racist statement to make. I honestly do. I'm telling you up front, I get it. I can't put myself in that mindset. I'm a white guy. I'm not a black guy. But if I were, I would be grossly insulted by the judicial's position, the judiciary, a judge, and now the appellate court that says I'm too stupid. I would be beside myself with anger over that. I really would. Now, but let's pause for a minute and let's look at what straight party ticketing gets us. Okay, it causes folks to feel that they don't have to know the issues. They don't have to know who these people are, what they're supporting, what they're about. And I ask myself, when we all, as it's become political commonplace to rag on politicians. Oh, they're all a bunch of thieves. They're this, they're that. That's just, people they look at Hillary Clinton. That's just how they all are. Stop it. That's not how they all are. And if it is how they all are, you know whose fault it is? Ours. And so when I read the appellate court's findings and the judge before them, my immediate thought, and this is me as a white guy, as someone that's very involved in the political process, my immediate thought was, maybe that's how we keep ending up with these buffoons, because we don't know who we're voting for. This shouldn't be a Democrat or a Republican thing. It really shouldn't be. This should be concerned citizens saying, we're going to get involved or we're going to stay out of the booth. Because if you don't know what you're doing, don't go in there. That's how I feel. It's just how I feel. Maybe I'm all wet. Maybe I got people screaming at the radio right now. But I'm telling you that when we keep finding excuses and reasons for people to know nothing, that's what we get, is know-nothing people. And then you know what we get? We get an elected community, because I say this a lot, they are a perfect reflection of the electorate. So if we want a know-nothing electorate, we can't be surprised if we have a know-nothing elected body of representation, because they're us. We didn't beam them in from some other planet. They're us. And so the judiciary says to an entire swath of popula, you're too stupid, we're going to dumb it down for you, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. They ought to have their face slapped. That's outrageous. But then to the entire electorate of any race, of any religion, of any sexual persuasion, of anything, they should be saying, no, stop that. We refuse to allow you to dumb us down because you think it might be expeditious for you in this particular election cycle, which is what we're really talking about. And shame on them. Shame on every one of them. It's wrong. And so when I say to folks on the air, our judiciary is the single most broken branch of government, it's decisions like this. That's why I say it, and I passionately say it. It's over the top that they think that an entire swath of people are too stupid, or that this action will help them because they lean a little liberal this time, or they lean a little conservative. Don't make these decisions on ideological grounds. Make them on what's best for our union of states. I don't know how else to say it to you. I don't know why this is a riddle to anybody. It's not a riddle. Do right. That's how I see about it. That's what I'm saying. So listen, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll do the Enigma Report, and I bet I'm not any less passionate. I'm just guessing. Folks, we'll be right back.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show on News Talk 1090.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
You have arrived to your final destination on your journey through reality. Welcome to the Enigma Report.
Listen, folks, recently we watched Donald Trump reach out to the black community, and he listed a whole significant thing, a significant list of things that he felt needed to have some light shined on them. And I got to tell you, the media reply is an enigma to me, because, and I mentioned this real briefly in the first segment, but we've watched for the last 50 or 60 years the extreme left, the left, talk about the black community, talk about inner city America in general, that the only thing it needs is more money, it's on fire, we need to do all of these big laundry list of things. Keeping in mind, I said for the last 60 years, I'm 55, so for my entire life, plus some, the Democratic Party, well, look at Milwaukee. 1908 was the last Republican. And I look at these cities, folks, if you go to them, you'll know that there really are two Americas. And to pretend like they're not is an enigma to me. It is. For Donald J. Trump to reach out with some honesty and say, these are the problems, these are the promises that have been broken to you, vote for me, at least consider voting for me. And the media, the response is, what's he talking about? There's no problems in the communities. It defied gravity. What did I say earlier? It was like a double sow cow, triple toe loop maneuver.
Yep.
You're going, what? You've been saying for 60 years it's on fire. Now when Donald Trump acknowledges that it is and reaches out to try to help, their response is, what problems? What's he talking about? It's insulting to me. Inner city America, we've talked about this endlessly. Inner city America, not race, folks. Inner city America in general, regardless of race, has educational results that are literally on par with Haiti. No, there's no problems in inner city. These folks cannot fill out, they are functionally illiterate. The percentages are near 50-50. So I'm not saying everybody, and I'm not saying a given race. Inner city America is approaching 50% functionally illiterate. No, there's no problem. What's he talking about? They can't fill out a job application. There's no problem. What's he talking about? Folks, if I were a 17-year-old, we've said this before, if I were a 17-year-old standing on the street corner, forget race for a minute, get that out of your head, and I can't even fill out a job application, I don't know who my father is, and everybody that passes me is in a nice car, if you don't think I'm angry, you're being silly. No, there's no problem. Well, I got to tell you, if you look at the population layout of the United States, half of our population lives in or about inner city or city America. No, there's no problem. Let's not worry about it. That's insane. Folks, the media, talk about an enigma. It's insane, their reply to him reaching out. And here's the problem. Here's what they didn't like. He was reaching out. That's an enigma. How can they honestly look themselves in the mirror? I've said all along, I've been saying it all along, it isn't political left or right to honestly say that the only way we can save America, nothing else we're doing matters unless we save the American family. And if we don't include saving the inner city American family as part of that, then we're lying to ourselves and we're still on fire and we're going to crash.
The Milwaukee sheriff finally somebody of that community said.
He said it. He said the truth.
Yep.
It's about the family. I've talked about it endlessly. What do they say? No, there's no problem. What's he talking about? They're insane, or they're finally admitting that they want to keep those folks where they're at. Only one of those two things can be true. They either want to keep them in those terrible, absolute poverty-stricken circumstances with no education. They either want that. Is that right? I can only conclude they want that.
Yeah.
Or they're insane. It can only be one of those two choices. So Donald J. Trump reaches out to him. No, there's no problem. Folks, there's a problem, is what I've been saying all along. We have got to save the American family. 48% of the babies last year. I say this all the time. Listen, if you think you've got social unrest right now, the folks that are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old now came from a time when the unwed birth rate was about 20%. So cast yourself down the road 15 or 16 years when the babies last year, half the babies in America, start getting into their teenage years. No, there's no problem, folks. It's insane. It's an enigma to me why the American people don't listen to the Clark, to Sheriff Clark, and point to him and use him as an example of success. Honest. It's an enigma to me why when Donald J. Trump reaches out to folks, that there's not people reaching back. Well, that's just the basis. Can we just for a minute skip partisan politics and say half of America is in trouble? The man's reaching out to him. Their answer, there's no problem. What's he talking about? They're insane. Or they're selfish beyond the level of measure.
You guys would probably remember this. I'm not trying to be funny.
Are you trying to say because we're old? Is that one of those age shots
again? Yes, but I'm not trying to be funny this time. My parents
He's never funny,
are your guys' age. So I remember them telling me once that Bill Cosby came out and basically scolded the African American or black community, as I normally call it. I don't believe they're African American. They're black Americans, white American. We're all Americans. That Bill Cosby came out and scolded the community and ended up losing Jell-O and all these other endorsements and was crucified for coming out and saying it's not the white people's fault, it's our own fault, it's our own family structure's fault. He lost everything in the 80s. Do you guys remember that?
I don't remember it. I'm not that old.
Yeah, he did that earlier
he was targeting some of the rap music at the time, and some of the lyrics and the use of the N-word.
Right.
And they came out after him for actually saying that.
And do you think that because, I mean, Bill Cosby was everybody's idol, right? The Cosby Show was what everybody aspired to be, apparently, in that community. I don't know. I like the Cosby Show. I watched it. That by him doing that almost stopped anybody else from ever speaking up or trying to be involved because of the way they crucified him.
It didn't stop Sheriff Clark. It didn't stop Donald Trump, and it ain't stopping Miles, you and me.
No, but in the black community, is it stopping? And
listen,
Sheriff Clark's black.
I got to tell you, though, but then there are folks like Robert Pitts Jr. that we had on the show a month ago, who's from Detroit. He's roughly my age and lived through the riots down there. He's speaking up. Enough. Let's stop this. If someone's reaching out, I'm going to reach back, because that's what humanity asks you to do.
Yeah, but Mike, it doesn't fit into the media narrative, so the media doesn't want to cover it. Remember, Michelle Obama, I think February, came out and said, if I'm a black person at a gas station, I can be shot.
Right.
Okay, and so, when you have folks speaking up, if it doesn't fit into the media narrative, they just simply are not going to cover it.
But she won't stop and say, who's likely to be the shooter? And forget who's doing shooting, forget whether it was a gun, forget all of those things. But the greatest question of all is why? Why is there so much violence? And to me, it goes back to what I started out with. And we've done the math before. If you take the United States and you lay it out, forget black and white, Democrat, Republican, you lay the United States map out, and you get the old-fashioned overlay, and you lay out all of, not guns, folks, forget that word for a moment, you lay out violent crime on an overlay map, and then you lay out single parenthood by demographics, and you lay that map out, and holy moly, there's a little quinkydink that happens. It's the same. It's identical. And the media knows it, and for them not to at least point it out in earnestness makes them either insane or part of the problem that wants to purposely keep people in that circumstance. And if they want to do that, shame on them. Evil to think that could be. I'd rather think they were just so stupid that they didn't get it. But I don't believe that.
The thing that I'm reading and hearing about what Trump said was how he said it. Like, you guys are so stupid, why not just give me a chance?
But that's not what he said.
I didn't get that at all.
What he said is
he talked to him plain
these
English.
Are the things that are. But, it's what I said when we were talking to Pete Hoekstra earlier. I'm blown away with the concept, even from our side on this topic, by the way. For as long as Miles and I together have been involved in politics, longer than you've been alive, we might add.
Yep.
We've heard people say, why don't those politicians just say it? Now he says it, and they go, oh, my goodness, did you hear what he said? He said what we've been wanting them to say for 40 years. Am I wrong, Miles?
No, that's, and all he's saying is, given the circumstance you're in, what do you have to lose? Even if I go to office and do nothing, you haven't lost anything.
Right. Well, and to that point, for 60 years you've been promising that path. Is it working for you? If not, maybe just for funsies, let's try a different path and see how it works.
It doesn't work 4 years, you can change it.
And listen, it's kind of the irony of West Michigan, which tends to be conservative. And you go, well, we sure do have a high standard of living over here. There's a lot of good things happening over here, and that's not a coincidence. It just isn't. It's how folks decide to live. And I think it's a choice that people get to make. They get to make a choice. How do we want to live? It's their choice. It's not his or mine or theirs. It's their choice. But when I say their, I mean all their. Any color, America. It's their choice to decide how to live.
I could tell you for 7 years, I wish Bush would have just done what Trump's done and just said it instead of beating around the bush about
But he couldn't.
wars. Just call and say, listen, we're fighting them over there instead of in our backyard. Where would you rather have it?
Well, he
and
kind of did.
Trump would have come out and said that. And that's what I like. They're just going to sell you straight up. What do you got a choice? You got them or me, and you've tried them. It doesn't work. Try me.
Now,
why
the
not?
folks that have for years said, I wish someone would just say it.
And he got a guy
now
saying
that
it.
he just says it, they're going, I hope he doesn't win and become a reign of tyranny. Well, if you were half of America living in abstract poverty with a 50% illiteracy rate, that is tyranny.
We're going to go from a guy that kisses the ring of Saudi Arabia's prince or king takes a book and takes a picture with Chavez down in Venezuela to a guy that's going to tell Putin, shut up. I'm good with that. We're going from Ford to Reagan type style here. I'm going to wear a sweater in the Oval Office. To I'm going to walk out on Gorbachev.
Listen, the media is always talking about Putin and Trump. And the fun part about that is whenever they say that, I reflect back to our Russian friend, Zhana Kanechi, who said that if Obama would defend America the way Putin defended Russia, he'd have an 80% approval rating also. Folks, find us on Twitter at Talk Mike Hewitt. You almost listed it. I saw that.
I will
and on Facebook at / The Mike Hewitt Show, and of course, TheMikeHewittShow.com. Miles, I was glad you were able to join us.
Yep.
Folks,
glad to be here.
Ludwig, Brian, thank you. Folks, thank you very much. We'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.